Hey guys, what's up? Today we're playing some Doom. The original, the very first Doom. So, right away I'm playing on the Super Nintendo, which is live footage on the right side. And I have the 32X version on the left side, pre-recorded, that I was playing earlier. So, of course, both the Super Nintendo version and the 32X version, they're both very limited at the time. You know, they didn't really have a lot in terms of hardware. 32X, of course, had much better hardware than either two systems. It was just kind of like a rushed little system. They didn't have a lot of time to develop the game for, because they had to make the game really fast to meet the launch, which is why it's an unfinished game. It actually only has about half the content or 2/3 the content. But I mean, for what it is, it actually plays pretty smooth. You'll see kind of like the border around the 32X version, like a border around the gameplay screen, just so the action stays fast. Super Nintendo version, you don't have that, but you do. It's just black, and then they put like the little HUD down below. Like I'm trying to do like a pixel by pixel comparison. So if you look at the gameplay screen between the left and right side, they're actually pretty close. So, but I mean, 32X version plays a little smoother, and that version actually came out sooner. I want to say it came out like 2 years before the Super Nintendo version came out. Came out around the same time as the Atari Jaguar version, which I think wasn't too bad. I've never played it, never seen it, but I've heard it's pretty decent. But not a lot of people had the Atari Jaguar. So, and then when the Super Nintendo version came out, it actually used the Super FX2 chip. So it had a much better CPU than the stock Super Nintendo, which no way would have been able to run this. But it still plays kind of slow, very low frame rate, very crappy resolution. But I mean, it's still impressive, just the fact that Doom can even run on the Super Nintendo to begin with. So, but it's not too bad. I mean, it's still enjoyable. But I mean, if I were to pick which one to play, I mean, if I had to pick one, it would be a 32X version, just because, I mean, you could see the frame rate difference and how easy it is to kind of like control. I mean, the 32X version is definitely a little more smoother. But I mean, just about all the sound effects are there. And Super Nintendo version has much better music. 32X version has horrible music. A couple exceptions, but overall it should have been much better. Of course, because it was a rushed version, the developers relied on using the Genesis hardware to make the sound. But I mean, even a lot of the later Genesis games actually had much better. I said sound. It's actually music, not sound. I mean, the sound effects are done by the 32X hardware, but the music is done by the Genesis. But even with that in mind, a lot of the later Genesis games had really good music, especially like the Tommy Tallarico games. So I mean, there's some remixes on YouTube of people making their versions of Doom music covers with emulated Genesis sound hardware, and it just sounds really good. I mean, the music on 32X versions should have been much better, which unfortunately it wasn't. But oh well, it is what it is. But when I first played Doom, I played Wolfenstein on my friend's computer who had a computer. I mean, back when this game came out, PCs were not what they are today. I mean, very few homes had PCs. I mean, this is when homes were just starting to get PCs. I mean, probably about 5 years later is when about every other home had a PC. IBM was coming out with their Aptiva, and Windows NE5 had just come out. I mean, this is after Doom came out, of course, but this is around that time frame. But Bill Gates had said in an interview somewhere that he wanted his goal was to have a computer in every home. And at the time, that almost sounded ridiculous. But, I mean, it became common within 5 years, 5-10 years. Which now it's not as common anymore, just because of, like, tablets and phones. But still, I mean, it was pretty incredible. But the point I'm getting at is when Doom first came out, which it came out, I want to say a year or two later after the PC version on 32X and also the Atari Jaguar, is not a lot of people had a PC. So, and even when the Super Nintendo version came out, about every other home, maybe every third home, had a PC. So not a lot of people could play the PC version. I mean, even on a kind of an average slow PC, like a 486, you could play Doom better than the 32X version. But it was still, I mean, it's a good way to play it. It's a good way to experience the game. I mean, if you had no concept or very little concept of PC gaming at the time, Super Nintendo was actually a pretty good option, because not a lot of people bought into the 32X console, which, you know, it's unfortunate. It would have been interesting to see what that console could have been. And again, no one really had the Atari Jaguar. But also, by the time the Super Nintendo version came out, which was about a year or two after the 32X version did, you also had the PlayStation coming to market, which PlayStation had a version of Doom, which was pretty good. It wasn't too bad. But, you know, there's $300 PlayStation, so not a lot of people had PlayStations yet. So there's probably about as many PCs in the home as PlayStations at the time, maybe even less. But eventually it changed. But when I first played Doom, was in my high school electronics class, because they had some PCs in kind of like the back corner, like along the back wall. They had two 286 computers and 4 386 computers, and that's kind of when I discovered PC gaming at the time. And when I first saw it, and I've already seen Wolfenstein, but when I first saw it, it blew me away. It was just one of the most amazing things I'd ever seen. Like, how could a video game look and be and play like this? And again, this was on a 386 computer, so the frame rate is not that much faster than the Super Nintendo version right here. So, I mean, if I would have, if the Super Nintendo version would have came out after I played that version, and I never played it on like a 486 or anything like that, I probably would have just went, oh, okay, yeah, this is a pretty faithful remake of the PC version. I forgot how to get the chainsaw. Did I get in the 32X version? Dang, I wasn't paying attention. Let's see, can I get the map? Let's see, here we go. Oh, I think I know what it is. Yeah, it's this way. But another limitation that you might not notice, I didn't notice it until much later, actually, but one of the ways they get around the hardware limitations, sprite limitations, all that kind of stuff, is you'll notice all the enemies, all the bad guys, are always facing in the direction of the player. And you don't really see that on, oops, kind of looped back around. That's okay. You don't really see that on a lot of the other versions. Maybe the Atari Jaguar version. And normally, like, the enemies will react when they either hear a gunshot near you or if they look at you and see you. So one of the things they did in the programming is they made it to where they don't react to gunshots. They only react if they see you. But of course, there's character animations for like when they're facing forward, backward, left and right, where that's like only a quarter of the animations that you really need. So, I mean, that saves a lot of memory right there. Pretty pixelated. If you want a good version of Doom to play, and you don't have a classic, or you don't have a PC to play it on, you know, if you're not a PC guy, I mean, the game's available on just about every major system now, except for Switch, oddly. But it's on Xbox One, backwards compatible with a 360 version. I don't know if there's a PlayStation 4 version, but I know there's a PlayStation 3 version. What else was there? Xbox version. There was a regular Xbox version that came with Doom 3. Like the special edition Doom 3, and then also came bundled with the Doom 3 expansion, which was a standalone expansion on the Xbox version. And it also came out on the Game Boy Advance at the time, which really wasn't that good on the Game Boy Advance. But Doom 2 in the Game Boy Advance was really good. I actually really enjoy that game. When that first came out on the Game Boy Advance, I used to play that all the time. Such bad frame rate. But I'm pretty sure the Super Nintendo version has all the content. I might be wrong. I haven't really played far enough on it to get that far. But actually, my favorite way to play the first Doom game, and it only has a third of the content because it's divided up into episodes. But my favorite way to play it is there's a mod for Doom 3 called Classic Doom, and it takes the Doom 3 graphics and everything and makes it so it plays like regular Doom. It's really, really good, really well done. If you ever have a chance to play it, it doesn't work with the BFG edition. You have to have the original edition. But if you ever have a chance to play Classic Doom on Doom 3, definitely give it a shot. A lot of survival horror elements to it, but more action based. A lot of blood in the game, even though it's a Nintendo game. A lot of blood. This is when Nintendo started to adopt like rating systems and things like that. I'm kind of lost in the dark. There we go. Oh. Super Nintendo version has a little bit more, I don't want to say polygons, because they're technically not polygons, but more walls and stuff in some areas. Yeah, even though it's like one of the first games to kind of use the 3D graphics, it's actually not really 3D graphics. It's all... Oops. Didn't mean to change my weapon there. Up the map, it's all 2D graphic based. And it uses like tricks to kind of like simulate and draw based on like your coordinates and all that kind of stuff. There's some really good videos on YouTube that explains how Doom is not really a 3D graphics game. It just kind of fakes it. Of course, now the PC version has so many different mods. Like Brutal Doom being the most famous one, where it's just real bloody and all that kind of stuff. Really cool lighting and everything. course, the head programmer behind this game, who pretty much became a rocket scientist, John Carmack. Of course, you know, you had a lot of parents, a lot of religious parents, freaking out over this game when it came out, just because, you know, you're going through hell and shooting demons and devils and all that kind of stuff. Which, you know, technically you're killing demons and devils. You're not joining them. I remember this stage on the Super Nintendo version gets a little choppy. No, I actually would have enjoyed seeing Doom 2 on the Super Nintendo. Grab that. There we go. I kind of wonder if they could have made this game run even better if they had a faster Super FX chip. But still, pretty cool. I mean, Doom basically just invented the whole first-person shooter genre. I mean, you would not have Halo, you would not have Call of Duty, GoldenEye, none of that stuff, Half-Life, none of that would exist if it wasn't for Doom. So, whether Doom is your favorite or not, you cannot deny that it's one of the greatest games, most influential games to ever come out on anything. But yeah, I'm glancing over at the 32X version. I'm actually still quite impressed with how smooth that game is. And there's a Sega Saturn version too, but from what I hear, it's not very good at all. Apparently they had a really good oh, I need the blue key. God damn, I forgot where the blue key is. They had a really good initial start with the programming, but one of the creators of Doom, I think it was John Carmack, he thought it was too different from the original game. I think that's a key over there. Oh, wait, I need the blue key to go over there to get the yellow key. Okay. So yeah, then they basically got stuck with version that they got. Saturn version should have been way better from what I understand. God dang, I forget what the key is. I already passed that part on a 32X, otherwise I would just watch that version. Let's see, is it in here? I think that's it, right there, actually. Yeah, the pixelation is so bad, it's kind of hard to tell what stuff is until you get really close to it. Oh, should we switch somewhere to open this stuff? There we go. Of course, the 32X version utilizes all 6 buttons in the controller. If you're using a 6-button controller, I don't know how it plays if you use a 3-button controller, because I almost always play Genesis with the 6-button controller. But Super Nintendo version, you got the L and R buttons, you know, the shoulder buttons, so it's a little easier to strafe back and forth. yeah, I mean, the 32X version, if they had like a couple extra months, you know, if it wasn't a launch title, if they would have waited and put a little extra work into it, it probably would have been a much, much better game. Let's see, is this the way it came? Yeah, this is the way it came. So, gotta go through this little maze right here somehow. Almost there. It's gonna be this way? Yeah, here we go. Oh, Pinky. Pink Demon. Oh, another Pinky. There we go. Here we are. Yellow card key. Of course, we got Doom Eternal coming out soon. Basically, Doom 5. The last Doom game I just really, really love. I got both the Xbox One version and the Switch version. But usually when I want to play it, I play the Switch version just because I can play it anywhere. I think I died on the 32X version at that point. Right, let's see how far I get on this version here. Of course, game was inspired by a lot of action movies and Evil Dead, Army of Darkness, a lot of that kind of stuff. It really deserves a good movie based off of it. But if you've never played the original Doom, definitely pick it up and play it either the 360 version on the Xbox One or on a 360. Every once in a while it goes on sale. I think I picked them both up, the digital versions, for like $1 a piece. I mean, I already have numerous versions, but what's one more version? Or if you got like an old Xbox console laying around, get Doom 3 Resurrection of Evil, and it'll be on that. I mean, those are both very flawless ports. I mean, probably better than the PC version, actually, like the original version. Because you can play with like the dual analog sticks, and you know, plays a lot like a modern first-person shooter in terms of controls and things like that. Oh, who's shooting me? Someone up there. Someone up there. Oh, crap. And of course, earlier I was playing the 32X version on my new Sony Trinitron. This game definitely feels much, much better playing it on a old CRT if you're going to play it on a classic console. Yeah, I gotta shoot some people with a rocket before I die. Oh crap. Oh crap. So yeah. That is Doom on the Super Nintendo and the 32X. Really good ports for what they are. Not the best versions to play, but they're good for what they are, and they were good for what they were when they came out. So yeah, let me know what you think. Let me know if you want me to play that classic Doom mod for Doom 3, because I'd like to show that off. So yeah, see you guys in the next video. Thank you for coming to my video. If you would like to help my channel grow, please like and subscribe, and please click on this little bell icon so you never miss a future video.